Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Anonymous Hedgehog podcast. My name is Rich.
And I'm Maya.
Today, we're going to be talking about how we think about money within our own families. So I think for me, it's a pretty unique system because whenever I tell people this, they get a little bit surprised. But like, my family hasn't really had like a concrete sense of like a budget where I'm given an allowance every month, or even when I was a kid, like I had no sense of like an allowance. It was really just like the family has a mutual sense of, okay, this is how much we should spend, and we're all a family, so it's all our money. So if I want to buy something, I would just ask my dad to get it for me, and he would get it for me if it was reasonable. But there was no like, oh, I have $20 to spend this month, so I'm going to save it.
I feel like my family is the complete opposite. It's like ever since I was young, they have made me spend like my own money on things.
Really?
Like for example, like Chinese New Year money or whatever. It's just like before I started actually like making money, I would have like just money left over. They wouldn't give me an allowance, but like some family members, whatever, like birthday gifts, whatever, I would get money. And like every time I would want to buy something, my parents would just be like, oh, like use your own money. And I feel like, and when I got older, it didn't even apply to like, I feel like as I made more money, like when in high school, I did tutoring. I feel like as I made more money, my parents expected me to pay for more things. Like, for example, like, when I would go out, maybe I want to go out and eat sometime, right? And as I made money, my parents would want me to pay for that. Rather, like before, like they would pay for that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like I prefer it that way. I think it's taught me how to manage my own finances, because I do like kind of do budgeting on my own terms, and you kind of have to learn. Like I feel like as a kid, like I kind of learned like, oh, like there were times when I spent money on stupid things and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. And so like I think it teaches you kind of a financial sense from a young age, but at the same time it's like, like you do end up spending money on like dumb things. You don't have like your parents like, filtering that money through.
Yeah, definitely that second thing that you said. I feel like I relate to that heavily. Like just the fact that I know that any money I spend it's not like it's my money to spend. It's like I'm spending money from this pool of money that belongs to our family, which makes me more conscious whenever I spend, because it's not like it's just a disposable income I have.
I feel like that makes I think I get what you're saying. It's like, because when I think about spending my own money, it's like separate from my parents in the sense that like my money is like, it's not used to pay the bills. It's not used to pay insurance, right? But like when you spend money, it's kind of like it is used. Like you're thinking like, oh, this is money that could be spent on, paying our mortgage or paying like our car insurance. So I feel like, I think that is a good way to kind of keep kids accountable. But at the same time, I feel like it depends like what kind of like kid you are when you like grow up, because I feel like at the same time, like once kids would start making their own money, they would kind of just want to spend it on whatever because they never had that freedom to do it before.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like even when I started making money as a teenager, like in high school, I would have like money that I would make, like just cash. And even if it was like $100 bill, I just take it and I just put it like downstairs in like our drawer, like our family drawer. And then it would just be there. And like, I wouldn't keep it in my pocket because it doesn't matter to me, because the money just belongs to like that drawer where we keep the money. And then when I need to make a payment for something, like even if I want to buy like headphones or something, I would just like ask my parents like, hey, like I need these headphones. Can I get them? If my parents think they're too expensive and it's like a useless purchase, then they'll tell me straight up like, no, find something cheaper. Or like your money could be spent better on something else. But if it's reasonable, and usually it was reasonable, like there weren't many times because also like I knew their sense of what I can spend on.
Yeah, like what to ask them for.
Yeah. And so having that like extra step of having to ask for it really makes it so that you will only spend on the things you need. Like I wouldn't go around with wads of cash in my wallet, just spending money on like hot Cheetos at like Walgreens near school or something like that, because that just wasn't an option for me.
No, I feel like that's it decreases your kind of the money that you would spend on kind of just like random things. Like sometimes you want to go out and get coffee or like just buy a bag of chips. Like I guess you couldn't do that because you just physically don't have the money. And I feel like that is a good thing because I realized this is why I stopped buying Starbucks and I stopped kind of buying like coffee and like takeout kind of things because I realized how quickly those small things add up. Like people who like buy takeout like every single day and like instead of cooking, I realized how those little things add up. You know, it's like it's actually insane.
Yeah.
Is your family very financially like conscious?
No, I don't think so. Not really. Like, I mean, obviously they are, but like, it's not like they have discussions with me about saving money on it, like on like a daily, monthly basis. I think it's just built up over time where like I would ask for something overly expensive and off the top, like a Lunchables, like what we talked about last time, like something stupid like Lunchables. And instead of just buying it for my money, my parents would explain to me like why it's not a good idea, like how I could get something with better value with the same amount of money. And I think that's just drilled into my mind, like what is worth it and what isn't. So now I think I'm very, very like financially conscious as a person, but I've never actually had a conversation with my parents about like budgeting or anything like that. It's mainly just been through trial and error. Like, oh, can I get this? Like, no, you can't get this. Why? Oh, because it's A, B, C, D. And then I note down, okay, A, B, C, D. Those are reasons why you shouldn't buy something. And then over time, I have a full list in my mind of just like what I can and cannot buy, just practically speaking. And like, I still carry money around, like especially when I'm going out on like a trip.
Yeah.
I remember like when we used to go to those like field trips to amusement parks in high school, like everyone would just spend money on like those souvenirs and things like that. And I just wouldn't, even though I'd have more money in my pocket than all of my friends, just because my parents would trust me with a lot more. And I would come back and like, I remember there were times when I would come back with more money than my parents gave me and just give that back. Even though I had the option to spend it on things like souvenirs, it was just the idea of knowing that this money's not mine. It doesn't belong to me. So I shouldn't spend it on something that I don't need. I think just prevented me from like falling into that trap.
The concept of the money not belonging to you is something that is so interesting. So like, I guess so like after, I feel like the transition from like when you like into adulthood would be very difficult though. Like once like you move out, like I guess how would you kind of separate off like I guess you would just start from scratch or like would your parents kind of give you some money to start out with since you've made money over the years or like
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like I think it just has to do with like it would still be connected. Like just instead like I know most kids get debit cards. But like you could get a debit card and they could just like fund your debit card like usual with just more money than a normal kid would get. Or they just give you a credit card, like based on the mentality that I described earlier. Like I feel like the way your parents give you money is the same. It's just with this model, your parents would give you more money because they know you're gonna spend less. Versus in the other model, your parents would give you less money because they know that the money is yours once they transact it to you. Like the actual means of transaction are the same. It's either a credit or a debit card.
have you not had a debit card?
No, I have a credit card.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
And do you have a debit card?
Yeah, I have I have a debit card and I just got a new credit card. So, I mean, this was like I just applied for it. It's like new. It's like kind of separate from my parents' like finances. So it's like entirely under my name. It's like, you know, like my parents they don't get any notification or like whatever, like when I spend money. Like they just have no idea of any of the money that I spend.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like honestly, both methods are good and they have their drawbacks. Like with your parents' method of giving you an allowance, you've learned on your own how you can and cannot budget and like what things you personally need. Like for me, I still don't have a great understanding of like what I should get because I think sometimes I get so caught up in saving money that I just don't even buy what I need, like an actual essential. So like I struggle to understand how to prioritize my budgeting, but like if your parents have given you an allowance from the start, I think you get really, really good at knowing when to spend.
So I guess it's not like, so you're defining allowance as kind of just your own money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like people like define allowance like, because when I think of allowance, I think of like you're like not like working, not like you like doing work and getting your own money, but it's like your parents giving you money for like doing work around the house, or like
Or
your
just
parents giving
for
you.
nothing, just like for
Oh
living.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your view on like allowance? Because this is something that like I mean like I made money in high school and I got to keep it, but like I my parents would never give me like allowance just for the sake of giving me allowance. You
Yeah.
know, like just like, oh, here's like $10 to spend it. Like that never happened like any time in my life. But I know that a lot of my friends'
Yeah.
parents did that. So like what are your thoughts on just allowance in general?
I think at times it can make a child really entitled. And the reason I say this is because literally yesterday I saw a Snapchat story from a girl in our age. And
Okay.
she posted, like, oh, my dad's paying me $30 an hour to do my chores. And this girl is 19 years old. She is 19 years old. And she's getting paid $30 an hour by her dad. And she put like post after post. And then like the first post was like, oh my God, he's offering money. The second post was like her holding the wad of cash. Like, look at all this money I earned, as if she earned it, but it's really just from her dad. And then the
Yeah.
third post was like her online shopping for literally useless items to
Yeah.
spend that $30 on. And to me, that was so entitled because like helping around the house shouldn't deserve money. In fact, you should be paying your parents more than just helping around the
Yeah.
house. What do you do as like a high schooler? Like honestly, you wake up and then you use your resources that are just handed to you every single day. And obviously there's students who like work a lot harder than that and they deserve every single ounce of it, but chances are like the work around the house that you are doing is not enough to like pay the bills. Like obviously
Yeah,
you're called a
exactly.
dependent for a reason. You are dependent on your parents. And if your parents are giving you an allowance on top of you being dependent on them, that raises you to just be so entitled to money and not actually know how much real work is worth. Like you doing the dishes for 30 minutes is not worth $30 in an hour, but that teaches the child that $30 isn't worth that much.
No, yeah, I definitely feel that way because I feel like in my household, at least, it's just like doing the dishes, like doing these chores. They're just like things that you had to do. Like, you know, it wasn't like they were going to pay you to do it. It was just like they were just expected of you. And I feel like that's a good mentality to have just kind of as a person, so like existing in the world. Because like once you move out, like no one is going to pay you to do the dishes, right? Like you're not going to have that incentive to do it anymore. And so like you're going to have to get used to just doing these things like because you have to do them, because like you have to do your laundry because like otherwise the dirty clothes are going to pile up, you know. And like I feel like if you were like used to being paid to do those things, then I feel like it'd be very hard to like realize that you have to do it without pay.
Yeah, you mentioned incentive, and I think that's really interesting because, like, what incentivized you to do the dishes without actually being paid?
I feel like it was more of a like it's kind of like instead of like a reward, it was like a punishment model. It's kind of just like if you didn't do it, your parents would just yell. It's like, you know, like versus like they give you a positive or incentive or like a negative one.
A negative
Like my
incentive.
parents, it was more like a negative incentive. It's just like, yeah, if you don't do it, we're just gonna yell at you. And like, I mean, that was like in the beginning, but like now it's just like you know, it's just kind of expected.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like after a while you just get used to it. You're like, yeah, like this is something you're just supposed to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I see. In fact, I think it was pretty similar here too. Like in the very beginning, like when I was like a child, it would be like,
Yeah.
oh, like do these. No, like why do I do these? Like I want to watch SpongeBob. Like do these or I'll yell at you. And then you did them. But like now it's like if you see your parents literally like half the time they don't ask me to do like dishes or whatever. It's like you see them working and like from the inside you should feel kind of guilty that they're putting all this work on themselves to the point where you should want to offer to do it without them asking you.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do that pretty much now. Like my parents and I basically like we kind of rotate cooking and like cleaning and things like that. Like sometimes like I'll cook if they're like tired or whatever. But I want to ask you this. I feel like Asian parents, like, because we both have like we both live in like Asian households, and so I feel like Asian parents get a really bad rep for being like very stingy with money.
Mm,
Like I know that a lot of my white friends, for example, I had a white friend in high school, and for her 16th birthday, she got like a brand new like white Jeep, and I was like really jealous of that. And I was like, wow,
yeah.
my parents like my car in high school is older than me.
Me too.
Like it
Me
was just
too.
like old family car, and actually
Yeah.
like a lot of the times like I had to like jump start it because like the battery had died, and it was really annoying to drive. But and I remember being super jealous of her having this like brand new Jeep. And you know, like all these like other kind of like white parents that would pay for all their kids' things, but then I feel like Asian parents get a bad rap because they save the money for things that like really do count. Like most Asian parents will pay their kids like college tuition in full. Like they don't expect you to like like they don't really expect you to take out student loans. Like they don't
That's just
want you
not
to
a
take out
concept.
student
Yeah.
loans. Yeah, like they just like will not. Like, they're just like we'll pay it, like no questions. Like as long as you finish college, like we're going to pay it. Like even if it's like a lot of Asian parents like they even will like prefer their kids to go to like a higher like prestige private school, even if it means paying like double the tuition. But I feel like a lot of parents who I kind of like indulge their kids at a young age, like they don't have the financial means to do that. And so like when the money like really counts, they can't pay for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it all comes down to priorities. Like with Asian culture, there's no concept of, oh, you're 18, now you're on your own. That's just not a concept. It's
Yeah.
more of like, oh, you're on your own once you like get married and then have kids. Like that's when you're actually independent. But with like,
Yeah.
I think with more like white households, it's more of like, once he or she's 18, like she'll be pulling out student loans to go to college and we'll be working
Yeah.
jobs, so we might as well like spend money on this Jeep right now just to like
Yeah.
show love to her. But like it's just different priorities. Like at the end of the day, both sets of households, like they have the same amount of love and the same amount of like financial means to like spend money on their kid. It just
Yeah.
comes down to like what are they spending money on, and I think that's just a cultural shift.
The concept of student loans, like, so yeah, like growing up in an Asian household, it just like, it feels so foreign to me. Like, I hear it in the news, right? Like, I hear about, it's like this big student loan crisis, but like growing up, like, that was never a concept to me. So it's just so hard to wrap my mind around because, like, a lot of, like, I feel like parents, like, some of them, like, it's like the concept, like, when you're 18, you're on your own. Like, parents, like, will not pay. They would rather like kids like be kind of financially responsible and kind of pay their way through college. And I guess I get that, but like I feel like student loans, like it adds up so quickly, and especially the interest, like once you graduate college, it's like such a burden. I feel like if my parents didn't have the financial means to pay, I feel like I would just go to maybe community college or something. Cause like the concept of getting student loans, it's so much money. Like I don't know. Like it just blows my mind, honestly.
Yeah, and like getting all of that money while not even earning any money, like while being a full-time
Yeah.
student or earning minimum wage as a student, that is incredibly stressful. And it just comes down to like what people prioritize. I think with Asian families, it's like it's education over everything. Like
Yeah.
literally like no boyfriend, no girlfriend until you get married, because until then you have
Yeah.
to study.
Uh-huh.
And then with more like American households, it's like, oh, like look, mom, like I'm bringing in my girlfriend, and then that's like it's a very like friendly type of culture that doesn't
Yeah.
prioritize education above like even family. Like sometimes it's
Uh-huh.
literally like, no, like don't come downstairs for like dinner and talk with your family because you need to study. Like obviously that's not the case for me, but like
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with so many Asian people where it's literally education over family. And so I think it really is a matter of priorities. And honestly, like I don't think either of these priorities is better than the other. I think the best is just like a balance between all of them. Like even paying for some of your child's like tuition and making them rely on themselves for the rest. I think that's also a good mix. Like I'm not siding with either one. I just think that a balance between the two mentalities would be best. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I feel like my experience is kind of different than yours in this regard because my parents have never I mean, I can't say they haven't prioritized education, but they were never like those kind of tiger mom kind of like parenting, or just like my parents like honestly didn't really care if I studied that hard. Like I feel like it was very like like I cared about my grades. My
Oh,
parents
yeah.
like didn't actually care that much. Like I mean like I don't know. Like my parents would always tell me, like, if you just go to sleep and like you can get a C and
Yeah.
like we don't really care. But like I
Yeah.
would like be like, no, like I'm getting A on this test.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know, like do you think that the kind of the mentality is like actually beneficial to kids, that parents that like really push their kids? Because I have friends like like they would go to summer camps, like academic summer camps all the time, and then they would like they spent all their summers doing SAT prep and like going after school, going to tutoring centers. Like, do you think that was like beneficial or like healthy to the kid in the long term?
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat as you. Like my parents were definitely not tiger parents either. And they were I was also very self-motivated. Like they didn't I know a lot of parents have like their login info to the school website to like check their
Yeah.
grades. So my parents didn't even know what classes I was taking for all 4 years of high school. I would like tell them, I'd be like, oh, like we learned this in Gov today, and they'd be like, Gov, what? Government? You're taking a government class? And it's like, yes, mom. Like I've been in this class for like 6 months now. So I think I'm definitely in the same boat as you. But with the tiger parents, I feel like unless the child is self-motivated, they will only do well if you are like literally looking over them. And the moment you stop being a tiger parent, they will like succumb to like the distractions around them. So once they go off to college, like they might get into a great college in high school because of all of that tiger parenting, but once they are in college, like no one's there to look over them anymore. So they don't have to be academically successful.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that a lot, like with like people that have like friends that I've had that like had tiger parents and then went on to go to college, where they realized that they had all this freedom and like just time that on their hands, that their parents weren't really watching over them. And then like they kind of just went crazy. They just like got into alcohol and they just went parties, and they kind of just like forgot about school, because I guess they never really cared about it in the first place. I guess like I think for my like in my situation, it's like I actually cared about my grades, so like that's why I put in the effort. But I guess like
Yeah.
the truth is, like the people that have had tiger parents, like they didn't actually care about their grades. They just cared about like the repercussions of not getting good grades.
Yeah. And not even grades. Like in fact for me, I think the first like 2 years of high school, I did not care about my grades at all. Like I would slack heavily, and I mean it's like seen in my transcript. There's a clear trend from like the first 2 years when I didn't care, and then the last 2 years when I did care. And but like the reason I can still say I was academically motivated was because I cared about academic subjects. Like I wasn't focused on passing my classes because I was too focused on like building apps, which was still academic. So I think just as long as you have a goal in mind that seems to be remotely academic, in fact, it can even be like an artistic goal. Like if you want to like make paintings and like sell them, as long as you are motivated from the inside to be doing something that's other than just like partying and going crazy, I think that's enough to say that they are motivated.
Yeah. I feel like I want to ask you this about high school. Like, because I know in American high school, like the way it works is like you take pretty much classes in every subject. Like you'll take like English and math. Like at our high school, we had to take like 4 mandatory years of English, like no matter what you wanted to study. And then you'll take like government, econ. You just have to take all these classes. But I compare this a lot to like in Europe and in England, like how they kind of like specialize, or like they kind of have majors like we have here, like in high school almost. Like they specialize like very early. Do you feel like it's better like the American system, the way we do it? We kind of have like a core curriculum that we span all subjects, or do you feel like it's better to concentrate like earlier?
That's such an interesting question. I've never thought of that before. I've never
Really?
thought of that before.
I feel like I contemplate this question all the time.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never think about that because I think I'm more of just like if it's handed to me, I'll just do it without thinking kind of person. Like I don't question the structure I'm put in. Like I've
Really?
thought about this a lot, and I talk to people, and they're always complaining about the education system. To me, I think my mentality has always been like, you're given a game, and you just have to be the best
Yeah.
player in the game. It doesn't matter if the game is rigged. Like even if you like cheat your way through the game and you find loopholes in the game, as long as you beat the game, it doesn't matter. You can't complain about the game because that's not going to help you beat the game. So I haven't really thought about like how we could modify our education system, but I guess like yeah, specializing earlier would be better, but also some kids don't know what they want to do until like
Yeah.
mid college.
I feel like, see, I feel like it's kind of like a double-edged sword in the sense that some kids like don't want to like don't like obviously I know a lot of kids that like if they had to decide a career path now I'd be very worried for them
Yeah.
because like I'm just like wow I don't know what you're gonna do when you get older, but also like I feel like a lot of them are like that because of the mentality of like we never had to decide at a young age, you know, because like I know like my parents, I think like they went to school in China, and I think in middle school or like at the end of middle school or the beginning of high school, they had to like choose an area of study. Like they either had to choose like STEM kind of field or like the humanities, and like they had to stick to it. And their entire high school curriculum was based off of what they chose. And like I feel like almost like when you're expected, it's kind of the chicken egg thing. It's just like when you're expected to make that choice early, I feel like you are more mentally prepared. But like now, like I was reading this thing about like psychology, like it was in psychology, a book. It was just like how like adolescence is so extended now because like the the time when we're expected to make important decisions about our life is just continuously like being pushed back and back. Like, you know, like marriage used to be like, you know, 21, 22. But like that's being pushed back. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing with education. It's just like when you're supposed to decide in your future career, like that date is constantly being pushed back.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It definitely is being pushed back. I don't know which came first, like the chicken or the egg. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't tell if it's because of the system that kids are indecisive or they're just indecisive and that's why the system has turned out this way. Honestly, like, one thing that is for certain is just offering all of the courses and just allowing students to
Yeah.
choose, which I think honestly is what most American high schools do. Like all of my coursework was very heavily like STEM based coursework. Like I took computer science classes, physics classes, 4 years of math classes, and and then like the rest of the work, like the English classes, they were required to take, but I also really enjoyed them because it gave me an avenue to think in a different way. Like I think it is very important for an engineer to be able to discuss, like to be able to interpret books. Likewise, it's very, very important for someone who is trying to be like an author to understand math. And it's simply just like I read this book. Again, I reference this all the time called Mindsight. And it's about like it really talks about like how some people are very right-minded people, like right-brained
Yeah.
people, and that means that their left side of their brain is it just gets weaker and weaker
Yeah,
until
yeah.
like they just can't act as like normal people anymore. And so it's so important. Like even like an artist or an author like should definitely be taking objective courses like mathematics and physics just to improve both sides of their brain, I think.
Yeah, I think that just as Americans, I feel like we prioritize the kind of well-roundedness that isn't prioritized like in other countries. Like at least I know in China, like you know, they don't really care if you're well-rounded. Like as long as you have the score to get into like the university,
Yeah.
then you can get into the university. And like we have to like yeah, we can make a whole separate episode about like college admissions, but like here in college admissions, it's like they expect you to be quite like I mean like obviously like it's better if you're like specialize in one field, but like they do expect you to be quite well rounded. Like you need to have extracurriculars and your SAT score and GPA need to like you know be like high. So I feel like it's just yeah I think in like it's kind of just like different cultural priorities. Like again like I feel like Americans we want to be well rounded like people. And I feel like a lot of like learning in English and like, you know, like as an engineer, like I don't really need to read like Pride and Prejudice or like whatever. Like it's not that necessary, but it's kind of just like as like a functioning citizen or like in society, it's good to read these kind of classic books. And I feel like it's just kind of like I think they want you to be like a well-rounded, you know, citizen and not just kind of like a worker in like the economy kind of idea.
Yeah, it's like individual goals versus society's goals. And
Yeah.
to maximize society's like productiveness, you would want everyone to specialize perfectly in what they do. But then like
Yeah.
individually, those people would just struggle to make the connections they need to.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, we can just end on that thought. Thank you guys all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.